You've always felt out of place, like you're watching life from the sidelines while everyone else plays along. Not because you're broken, but because your mind refuses to settle for the ordinary. This isn't a flaw, it's a rare strength. The very traits that make you feel different are often the markers of exceptional potential. Let's go deep into each of these signs and understand why your uniqueness is your greatest asset. 1. You've never fully fit into any group, and you stopped wanting to. From school cliques to professional circles, you've often found yourself sitting just outside the lines, not because you lacked the skills to blend in, but because the types of conversations, expectations, and emotional dynamics that others seem to accept as normal never felt real to you. You didn't want to perform a version of yourself just to feel included, and pretending to enjoy shallow exchanges felt more draining than loneliness ever did. As time passed, you stopped forcing yourself to meet group expectations that demanded you water down your opinions or tolerate performative behavior, because you realized that the cost of belonging wasn't worth losing the clarity you had about who you actually are. It became obvious that real alignment doesn't come from similarity, but from honesty, and most groups aren't built around that. 2. You question rules. Everyone else blindly obeys. When people around you fall in line without hesitation, you're the one who pauses and asks what purpose the rule actually serves. Not because you're being difficult or disruptive, but because you can't make peace with doing things just because that's how they've always been done. You don't need chaos, but you do need logic. And if the rule can't be explained clearly, it loses its authority over your behavior. This constant need to examine rather than accept puts you in uncomfortable positions with teachers, bosses, parents, or institutions that mistake obedience for intelligence. But it's exactly this resistance to automatic compliance that gives you your edge. Most progress starts with someone who refused to agree without thinking. And while it might cost you social approval, it buys you something far more valuable: freedom of mind. 3. You feel more connected to possibilities than to traditions. You've never been able to romanticize things just because they're old. And while others take comfort in routines passed down through generations, you tend to see tradition as something that needs to be tested, not preserved for its own sake. Your focus naturally tilts toward what hasn't been done yet, and what could improve if people stopped repeating patterns just because they're familiar. That kind of mindset makes you stand out, often in ways that make people uncomfortable, because honoring the past feels safer than questioning it. But you don't question to be provocative. You do it because you see potential everywhere, and you're willing to abandon what's outdated if it gets in the way of building something better. Your direction isn't rooted in nostalgia. It's shaped by a vision of how things could be if people stopped settling for what they inherited and started creating what they actually believe in. And while that approach isolates you from the comfort of tradition, it keeps you aligned with something far more alive: possibility. 4. You find small talk physically painful. Being forced into conversations that stay at the surface feels more exhausting than being alone. Not because you're shy or antisocial, but because your brain starts shutting down when there's nothing real to hold on to in the exchange. The weather, the news, weekend plans, it all feels like static. And no matter how politely you try to endure it, your body reacts like it's under threat. You're not difficult to talk to. You're just wired to connect in ways that most people avoid. When the topic turns to something meaningful, your energy changes, your attention sharpens, and suddenly you're present in a way that rarely happens in day-to-day life. But until that switch happens, every part of the interaction feels like a task you didn't sign up for. This makes you misunderstood in group settings and overlooked in casual conversations, but it also means that when you finally do connect with someone who operates on your frequency, the bond is immediate and real, and those are the only connections you were ever interested in keeping anyway. 5. You intuitively sense lies, even when no one else sees them. There's a specific tension in the room that rises when someone isn't telling the truth, and you feel it before the words even finish leaving their mouth. Not because you're suspicious by nature, but because your perception is locked onto inconsistencies most people ignore. You notice the pauses that don't match the story, the fake laughter that hides resentment, the change in tone when someone's pretending to care. This makes you cautious with people, and often puts you in the position of being the only one who isn't fooled when everyone else is still smiling and nodding. But it also protects you from false intimacy and manipulation. You don't fall for charm, titles, or surface-level credibility. You look for coherence, and when it's missing, you trust your gut instead of waiting for evidence. 6. You get labeled too intense, too sensitive, or too complicated. People often don't know how to handle your depth and complexity. They label you as too much because your emotions are intense, your thoughts are profound, and your presence is powerful. But these labels say more about their limitations than about your qualities. Your sensitivity isn't a weakness, it's a sign of your capacity to feel deeply and connect authentically. Your intensity reflects your passion and commitment to living a meaningful life, and your complexity is a testament to your intelligence and curiosity. Embracing these traits rather than suppressing them allows you to live authentically and make a genuine impact. It's a path that may be challenging, but it's also profoundly rewarding. 7. You feel simultaneously far older and far younger than your age. You often notice that your thoughts carry a weight that others your age don't seem to bear. The way you observe people, the way you handle discomfort, and the way you carry responsibility doesn't align with what's expected from someone in your generation. At the same time, there's a part of you that still holds on to raw wonder. You're not disillusioned, you still look at certain things like they matter. This contrast confuses people. They can't tell if you're more grown up than them or somehow behind. And truthfully, you're neither. You're operating on a completely different internal timeline. This contradiction affects your relationships. You find it hard to relate to people who rush to settle or build their lives according to pre-written scripts. You think long-term, but you also don't pretend to have all the answers. That frustrates others who want certainty or simplicity. Your thoughts often carry both depth and openness. You've seen enough to be cautious, but you still care enough to try. That mix makes people project things onto you, either expecting you to be their guide or assuming you're naive for not picking a side. You're neither extreme, you're both awake and uncertain, and that tension keeps you alert. 8. Your passions obsess you more than any relationship ever could. When something lights you up inside, the world falls away. Time becomes irrelevant, people become background noise, and your whole body moves with one direction, deeper into the thing you're building, learning, or chasing. You're not trying to avoid connection, you're just wired to pursue meaning with an intensity that most people don't understand. That kind of focus can look like isolation to others, but to you, it's the closest thing to feeling fully alive. You're not interested in hobbies, you're interested in obsessions. The problem is, people can feel neglected when you're in that state. Friends, partners, family, they may not understand how something non-human can hold so much of your loyalty. But for you, passion isn't a choice. It's a demand. It grabs you by the spine and doesn't let go until it's done with you. It's not romantic. It's not glamorous. It can be exhausting. But it's real. And it's the only thing that ever made you feel like you were on the right track. You've probably lost relationships because of it. Or you've been told you're cold, unavailable, selfish, or obsessive. But deep down, you know what you're doing matters. Not because it's flashy or recognized, but because it keeps you sane. You weren't made to revolve around someone else's emotional availability. You were made to build, to create, to chase what others are too distracted to see. And anyone who truly loves you won't try to compete with that. They'll respect it. 9. You attract other different people, or threaten those who aren't. There's something in your energy that people feel before they even get to know you. Those who carry truth in them are drawn to you like magnets. You don't need to pretend, and that makes you rare. You bring out the parts of people they've hidden away. You say the things they've been too afraid to say. But with that honesty comes resistance. Those who aren't ready to be seen often feel exposed around you. You don't even have to speak. Your presence alone makes people choose, step up or step back. Sometimes this creates sudden intimacy with people you've just met. Other times it causes people to turn on you without warning. You've probably experienced both. The intensity of who you are either opens people or shuts them down. That can feel unstable, but it's just your energy doing its job. You're a mirror. You show people what they're suppressing. Some will thank you for it. Others will avoid you like a threat. 10. You experience deep bursts of isolation before every breakthrough. You don't just withdraw for peace and quiet. You go silent because something is breaking inside you, reshaping, cracking open. These are not ordinary low moods or burnouts. They're full-body pauses. Moments where nothing makes sense and everything feels like too much. You've been through this more than once, and every time it hits, you wonder if you're losing your mind. But after it passes, something shifts. Something always shifts. The people around you might not get it. They'll ask why you're disappearing, why you're shutting down, why you're not answering messages, but you're not retreating out of weakness. You're preparing. You're reassembling parts of yourself that the outside world doesn't know how to hold. These moments of silence are not empty. They're dense. They're full of questions, realizations, and uncomfortable truths that eventually push you into a new version of yourself. That kind of inner work doesn't happen in noise. It needs stillness. 11. You feel like you're preparing for something bigger, even without proof. There's no title for it, no roadmap, no official deadline, but you feel it, don't you? Like something's building behind the scenes of your life, something you haven't named yet, but can't ignore. You've carried this quiet pressure for years. It's not about ego or wanting to be admired. It's a feeling deep in your chest that says you were made for something more than just surviving. Even when life feels random, something in you says, it's not. You can't explain this to most people. They'll tell you to stop overthinking or to just live in the moment, but they don't get it. They don't know what it's like to carry the weight of a future that hasn't arrived yet. They don't know how exhausting it is to keep showing up when the path is invisible. But you keep going anyway. Not because it's easy, because giving up would feel like betraying something sacred inside you.